Hey everybody, it's been a while since I've done a deck list and actually played Gwent. It's been quite a while, but I went ahead and made a list that is shades of what I was always passionate about, which was Deathwish and Control. And here it is, my Deathwish Control list using Overwhelming Hunger. I got to rank 6, got from rank 6 to pro rank using exclusively this list, and it came through with a clip of 37 wins and 9 losses. And a lot of those wins were very convincing. So this is the list. I'm going to show it to you. It is my Deathwish Control list using, of course, the Cyclops. Alrighty, so here is the list. And of course, the way that we do this is we go through the cards. I'll tell you about the strategy and the thought processes behind my selections for these cards and how to use them optimally, and we'll talk a little bit about strategy. Now, this is the second time I record this deck list because I accidentally had something going on in the background, so we're gonna zoom through this because the 20-minute version of this deck list is now completely unusable. But we're going to be doing Overwhelming Hunger. Again, this is no secret about how powerful this leader ability is. It's on top of the win rate charts as well this season. It is a very, very, very powerful leader ability. Tactical Advantage is the stratagem that we're using. So with all those provisions, here is the deck. Now, starting with the bronzes, the Squirrel, Romeo the Squirrel. Wonderful, wonderful card. This is the ultimate tech card. At 4 provisions, with a 4-for-4 provision to strength ratio, you're looking at an awesome choice to throw in there based on what the meta is. And what I've surmised is Echo cards are very, very prominent and very much a part of the meta, especially Oneiromancy, which is the ultimate tutor card. Squirrel comes out and just num eats all those delicious Echo nuts that live in your opponent's graveyard. So your opponent plays Oneiromancy in round 1, which is usually when you want to play that card. Squirrel pops out and eats that card, and suddenly your opponent just used a huge card, possibly to get a card that they don't really care about, and that card that they were relying on to draw next round is now gone into the ether. The Squirrel is the absolute awesome tech card, and of course at 4 provisions you could pop it in and out of the deck. Honestly, I have never doubted this card when it was printed. I thought that this was just a brilliant card to include in most decks. Indrega Eggs is just another 4-provision Deathwish card, gets the trigger off for Haunt. But at the same time, given that this is a control list, I did have 2 Rot Fiends in here, but I found that given the fact that the opponent is playing, there's a lot of armor out there, shield, as well as small strength units, so getting a Deathwish trigger from the Rot Fiend is not always optimal. So having something that'll reliably drop 3 points on your side off the Deathwish, I find is good to have as well. So playing those drones can also help out if your opponent might be playing something like Maruna or a unit or a Kaltulis deck, let's say. Losing these drones is not going to really make or break you. Plus, it's good Manticore protection should your opponent play Manticore. We've got Indrega Warriors. Now, the Indrega Warriors are a 4-provision double consume option that can really get the job done. Now, the reason why I took this over something like Barghest is because it can trigger 2 Deathwish abilities off at once. So if you're playing in an early round, you can go ahead and plop this between a Foglet and a Rot Fiend, let's say, for a massive swing, eating your opponent's spies that they drop on your board to prevent them from being seized back to the other side. Same thing with locks. You can eat that, eat bleeding units. This is a good option to not only trigger Deathwish units, but also to rescue your dominance, to take away spying units from your opponent that they might be relying on. So a 4-provision, 4-strength unit that can trigger 2 consumes at once is very optimal. We've got the Foglets. Enough said about Foglets. It's a Deathwish unit that thins. We've got Noonwraith. Noonwraith, a 6 strength for 4 with a Deathwish. Now, the Deathwish obviously is not optimal for you, but in the same regard, I have used this and consumed it to plop 2 extra points on my opponent's row to put them in Igni range. I know that sounds like a long shot, but it has happened and it has been pretty good. But in the same regard, your opponent is often not going to have a 6-point removal card that they're going to want to use on something as harmless as a Noon Wraith. But the provision to strength ratio is too good to ignore. We've got 2 of those. Drega Larvae is the best bronze card in the game, in my opinion. It plops down 2 engine pieces with protection. If your opponent wants to use damage on one of these, they can only really often kill one. Just be very careful about playing against that new spine card that deals 3 damage to each adjacent unit. You want to kind of play around that. So if you have to open with a Foglet and play the Indrega Larvae to the left so it spawns to the right of the Foglet and have the Foglet in between, that's often worth your time. So there's the Indrega Larvae. Now, Drowner. Drowner is... plays into the theme of this deck being control. It's not a Deathwish unit, but it does go ahead and disrupt, which is the bread and butter of what this deck does. Your opponent playing Keltulis, move it away. Got something that's Rolock that's being a pain in the ass, be it Dagger 2 Blades or Dunka or something else, move it away. It'll definitely get a little bit of value, but the reason why I play this and not Bruiser, you might ask, is because it does do 2 damage. The Thrive will definitely get value over the Bruiser as well, typically, but the 2 damage will oftentimes shave a unit down to Maruna range to get you to have a favorable steal, or even potentially go ahead and kill a small unit so that your Manticore has a nice juicier target to pop off on. I've got Rotfiend. Rotfiend is not bad. If your opponent leads in with an engine, drop the Rotfiend, they come in with another engine, you just go ahead and Cyclops one into the other and get a nice 2-for-1 removal piece. I only played 1. I did start with 2, but I found that the opponent, my opponent typically went wide. There was a lot of armor, so the Deathwish of damaging a unit by 4 was not optimal all the time, but I did still find use for the Rotfiend. I did definitely find a value out of this card. So I've got 1 of those. Now, here's my boy. Here's the Cyclops. Now, a lot of people do not play Cyclops because it's melee locked, but who cares? Just put your Deathwish units in harm's way. If they die, so be it. You get the value off of it anyways. But the Cyclops has been such a key piece to controlling the opponent's side of the board and removing their key pieces. Because of the fact that you're flinging Deathwish units, you're getting extra value. This technically counts kind of like a consume, but you can fling your Detlef Higher Vampire, fling your Foglet, fling your Werecat if necessary. This is such a good piece. Not to mention using your leader charge on a unit to build it up by 2 points will typically put the resulting Ekimara into a nice place for your Cyclops to fling it and kill a key piece that your opponent relies on. So if you're doing some good Cyclops math, you know, flinging your Maruna into something that brings it down to 4 or less can potentially steal it. Same thing with the Manticore. Toss your Manticore into something small. It'll kill that, the Deathwish goes off, and it'll then take out a big target as well. So you can be pretty creative and cute with the Cyclops alongside some of the bigger Deathwish units like Maruna and Manticore, but it's up to you to figure out the optimal way to do it. Parasite, it's just a versatile 6-point card. Be it boost to rescue your dominance, or 6 damage to get rid of a pesky engine piece that's causing you problems. Werecat, lots of decks going wide these days. Pesky Treants, Elves, you know, drones, rats, whatever it may be. Werecat is good. It's got the Thrive. You can use this card liberally in round 1. Punish big rows of nonsense and get some good value out of this card. Manticore. Nobody respects the Manticore. Your opponent on blue coin decides to drop an important piece and protect it with tactical advantage. Play the Manticore. Make them pay for it. Get them to abuse that red coin with the Manticore. You can drop this and use your Overwhelming Hunger charge to really punish your opponent. And once they kind of see that the writing's on the wall, that they're now playing from behind, you are in a commanding spot. It is definitely worth playing this to beat your opponent early on. Goliath. No secret that Goliath is almost auto-include in most monster decks. It's 10 points of slam. Alongside all the Thrives, you'll get a lot of Thrive triggers off this. Deathwish will get Haunt to go and trigger off again. But oftentimes your opponent will maybe pass, and you can just drop this and rescue that round by playing a big point slam card. Now, It is worth noting as well that in rounds that perhaps don't matter, it could be worth your while to drop Goliath and consume it and pull out an important piece that your opponent might be relying on for a later round, be it you know, an Aglaeus that no longer gets its deploy effect, or something like Keltulis, etc. Keep in mind that this will summon the highest unit from their deck onto the opposing row, so this could even potentially help you out to line up an Igni. Put this on a row, consume it with your with one of your consume elements, and then go ahead and put them over the top for an Igni later on. Now, Maruna is an excellent card as well, because this will steal important cards. You can steal Crow Mother with this. You can steal, you know, if they're dropping in with something like Ceres or Roach or an Archer in the back row or a Revenant. There's a lot of cards that you might want to steal. If your opponent's dropping in with, let's say, what are they, a Swordsman? Not a Swordsman. Greatsword. You can steal it while it's still at 4. Drop this in, consume it, steal a big piece that they might be relying on. Caranthir. Okay, so Caranthir just gets you a second swing with one of your important Deathwish cards. Again, the element of this deck is control. It's not a point slimy deck, so what you want to be doing is using Caranthir fairly liberally. I like to use this in round 1 on something like Maruna or Imperial Manticore, so you get a second swing with Imperial Manticore or Maruna. Double it up, use your leader charge to consume it, and really punish your opponent. If they're coming in with something big right out of the gate, maybe go ahead, Caranthir out your Manticore, eat it, and then it's all systems go, you're way ahead. Or Maruna, same thing. If you're suspecting your opponent's playing a lot of like low to the ground engine pieces, go ahead, Caranthir out the Maruna, eat it, and then take the steal while you can. I've been very successful doing that. Again, there's a lot of cards in this deck that don't necessarily need you to save for round 3. You can be very liberal with these cards, like Igni. Now, Igni's a card I have not seriously played in probably over a year. I've always found that this card is, I don't want to say it's a gimmicky card, it's a very good card, but I've never found that it has been reliable for me. I threw it in here as just a 10 provision throw in, again, control, but it has really, really worked out gloriously. But what I have learned about playing Igni is that it's always best to take the Igni when it's there. Don't necessarily get too greedy for it, because you might get screwed by them passing or you not necessarily getting the optimal Igni. Take it when the opportunity presents itself, because you don't know when you'll get a better one later on. So it's better to take the points as they're presented to you versus just throwing down 2 points of depression. So there's Igni. Detlef Higher Vampire is it's just a consume target to really just slam out points. You're gonna get easily, let's say, I mean, you're easily getting 15 points off of these 10 provisions, so it's another trigger for Haunt as well. In desperate situations, when you feel like perhaps you really need to make up points because your opponent is not necessarily going to present too many units for you to control reliably, Caranthir onto Detlef is not a bad option, but it's not the primary option. Again, the theme of this deck is control. Caranthir onto Maruna or Imperial Manticore is often your best bet. So what I would suggest is only go ahead and use it on Caranthir, on Detlef if you're suspecting that your opponent might, you know, be playing a deck that doesn't necessarily present too many control options for you. Karathi Heatwave is just, it's Karathi Heatwave, right? We know what this is for. It's going to go ahead and eat scenarios. It's going to get rid of super tall units in one foul swoop. It will banish and get rid of all those pesky nonsense cards that might become too much of a boon later on. I find that this is a card that I like to hang on to, but at the same time, if you're holding on to too many big swing cards like Karathi Heatwave and Igni, you're going to find that it's going to be difficult to get them off optimally. I like to use one or the other in round 1 and then save the other for a long round 3. If you're playing into a long round 3, Igni's your better option, but if you're playing into a short round 3, hang on to Heatwave. If you can hang on to both, it might be a little problematic, but you know, you can't necessarily go wrong. Here's Haunt. Obviously, this is where you're going to get a lot of points. Haunt was probably not as good as it used to, or is better than it used to be. It was never the optimal scenario for people to take. You'd see a lot of Feign Death, a lot of Siege, a lot of Ball, obviously, you know, Passiflora. Haunt never got much love, but now it is definitely a very serious contender, because you're getting not only the points off of the units it's spawning, but you're also getting consume charges. You're getting one off the Banshee, one off the Barghest, and again, a second off the Barghest should you maintain dominance, which you typically will. Just be mindful of the fact that you need 2 Deathwish units to trigger all of it. So finally, Oneiromancy is it's the ultimate tutor card. You want to use this to get all the good cards out of your deck if possible. But the brilliant part about this deck, again, the general strategy is that you want to go into round 3, be it long or short, with Haunt and 2 Deathwish units. Those Deathwish units that you typically want to hang on to are Dettlaff, Higher Vampire, and whatever else. Haunt and Dettlaff, Higher Vampire with a 3rd Deathwish unit is the optimal 3-card hand that you want. You'll have enough consumes to get the job done, so be mindful of your overwhelming hunger charges as well, because sometimes if you're going into round 3, hanging on to too many overwhelming hunger charges, plus all the consumes that you might have, you're going to lose. It's not the optimal scenario, because you're going to be losing out on earlier rounds as well. I find that every single card in this deck, except those 2, is perfectly fine to use if it's going to get you a win in round 1. Werecat, Goliath, Maruna, Caranthir, Igni, all this stuff is perfectly fine to go ahead and generate points. You have the double Andrega Larvae, you've got some more Thrive options, so you're going to get the points that you need. Control is the name of the game, so you want to really limit your opponent's ability to generate points from the cards that they already have on the board. You don't want the synergy to be your defeat here, and oftentimes your opponent will be they'll try to bleed you. You'll be able to get out of it, but playing Haunt is your round 3 winning option, along with Dettlaff, Higher Vampire. You know, you might get bled in round 2 if you give up round 1, but round 1 shouldn't be a problem. You know, red coin's your friend, obviously. You can abuse it with Manticore against their big play with the stratagem like Tactical Advantage that they might get greedy on. Just respect the Manticore, make it happen. It's not the most straightforward deck to play, because it's not a point slam type deck. This is very much a control deck, and if you can really finesse your Manticore or your Maruna along with your Cyclopses, you will have a hell of a time controlling the board and have a lot of fun just frustrating your opponent. Cyclops comes out of nowhere. They'll definitely not expect it, but this is probably one of the best control decks from a monsters perspective that I've played, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you like it. You can catch me playing this deck on stream on twitch.tv/watchflake. Ask any questions you want, leave the comments here. Follow the channel, check me out on Twitter @watchflake, and all that other nonsense. Please, friends, be kind to one another. It's great to be back. I love you all, and I will see you soon.